Hello and welcome to this first look exploring session looking at The Fawn by John Marston, or otherwise known as the thing that I can't pronounce, Parasitaster, let's call the whole thing off. It's written sometime before 1606, dating range around 1603, 1604, 1605-ish. It partly depends on where you place other things in Marston's output and a few other plays as well, but somewhere in that sort of early 17th century sort of area. And yes, we're going to get to grips with it now, or attempt to get to grips with it. We'll find out if getting to grips with it is an onerous task or not as we read through it now. In the room reading Herod is...
Hello, my name's Helen Good. I'm a historian and I'm in Hull.
Reading Hercules is...
Hi, Alan Scott, based in Suffolk.
And we've got some questions as to whether some of the speech prefixes are right between Hercules and Herod. According to the text, they are correct, but texts have been wrong in the past. So we will be stress testing that in at least one scene, whether those parts are the right way round. Reading Dondolo is...
Hello, I'm Lynn Freitas. I live in the northwestern United States.
Reading the prologue and Gonzago is...
Aliki, Chapple, living in northwest England.
Reading Nymphadoro is...
Briony, Sparrow, actor in Lincolnshire.
Reading Renaldo and Zuccone is...
Hi, my name's Elizabeth Amisu and I'm an author based in Romford.
Reading Page, Tiberio and Zoya is...
Rachael, Nicole, actor in New Jersey.
Reading Dulcimel is...
Hi, I'm Greg and I'm an interloper from the evenings.
And reading Amoroso today is...
Hi, I'm Eric. I'm an interloper from the attic.
Indeed. And I'm your host, Robert Crighton. I'll be reading stage directions as we go on. So without further ado, we're just going to dive into the play. We're going to read the prologue and I think maybe the first scene as well. Let the two run into each other just to get a sense of how we're going. There's no induction, which is we've done a few inductions from Marston, but this one is simply prologue into play. So without further ado, welcoming Aliki back after some hiatus. Welcome back and prologue for us, please.
Let those once know that here with malice lurk, 'tis base to be too wise in others' work. The rest sit thus saluted. Spectators, know you may with freest faces behold this scene, for here no rude disgraces shall taint a public or a private name. This pen at viler rate doth value fame, than at the price of others' infamy to purchase it. Let others dare the rope, your modest pleasure is our author's scope. The hurdle and the rack to them he leaves that have naught left to be accounted any, but by not being, nor doth he hope to win your louder hand with that most common sin of vulgar pens, rank bawdry, that smells even through your masks, usque ad nauseam. The Venus of this scene doth loathe to wear so vile, so common, so immodest clothings, but if the nimble form of comedy, mere spectacle of life and public manners, may gracefully arrive to your pleased ears, we boldly dare the utmost death of fears. For we do know that this most fair-filled room is loaden with most Attic judgments, ablest spirits, than whom there are none more exact, full, strong, yet none more soft, benign in censuring. I know there's not one ass in all this presence, not one calumnious rascal or base villain of emptiest merit that would tax and slander if innocency herself should write. Not one, we know it. Oh, you are all the very breath of Phoebus. In your pleased gracings all the true life-blood of our poor author lives. You are his very grace. Now, if that any wonder why he's drawn to such base soothings, know his plays The Fawn.
Act 1, Scene 1. Enter Hercules and Renaldo.
See, yonder's Urbin. Those far-appearing spires rise from the city. You shall conduct me no further. Return to Ferrara, my dukedom. By your care in my absence shall rest constantly united and most religiously loyal.
My prince and brother, let my blood and love challenge the freedom of one question.
You have it.
Why, in your steadier age, in strength of life, and firmest wit of time, will you break forth those stricter limits of regardful state, which with severe distinction you still kept, and now to unknown dangers you'll give up yourself, Ferrara's duke, and in yourself the state and us? Oh, my beloved brother. Oh, my loved brother. Honour avoids not only just defame, but flies all means that may ill voice his name.
Busy yourself with no fears, for I shall rest most weary of our safety. Only some glimpses I will give for your satisfaction why I leave Ferrara. I have vowed to visit the court of Urbin in some disguise, as thus. My son, as you can well witness with me, couldn't I never persuade to marriage, though myself was then an ever-resolved widower. And though I proposed to him this very lady, to whom he is gone in my right to negotiate, now how cool a blood will behave itself in this business? Would I have an only testimony? Other content shall I give myself, as not to take love by attorney, or to make my election out of tongues. Other sufficings there are, which my regard would fain make sound to me. Something of much you know, that and what else you must not know, bids you excuse this kind of my departure.
I commend all to your wisdom, and yours to the wisest.
Think not but I shall approve that more than folly which even now appears in a most ridiculous expectation. Being this assured, the bottom of gravity is nothing like the top. Once more, fare ye well.
And exit Renaldo.
And now, thou ceremonious sovereignty, ye proud, severer, stateful compliments, the secret arts of rule, I put you off. Nor ever shall those manacles of form once more lock up the appetite of blood. 'Tis now an age of man, while we, all strict, have lived in awe of carriage regular, apted unto my place. Nor hath my life once tasted of exorbitant effects, wild longings, or the least of disranked shapes. But we must once be wild. 'Tis ancient truth. O fortunate, whose madness falls in youth. Well, this is text. Whoever keeps his place in servile station is all low and base. Shall I, because some few may cry light, vain, beat down affection from desired rule? He that doth strive to please the world's a fool, to have that fellow cry, oh, mark him grave, see how austerely he doth give example of repressed heat and steady life. Whilst my forced life against the stream of blood is tugged along, and all to keep the god of fools and women, nice opinion, whose strict preserving makes oft great men fools, and fools oft great men. No, thou world, know thus, there's nothing free, but it is generous.
And exit Hercules, and that's the end of the first scene. So we've got a prologue doing various Marston-y things, and we got some plot being introduced. Thoughts on the room? Who wants to leap in first about where we are? A little bit of discussion in the chat about the nature of what this prologue was doing, and some notes about disguise. Helen.
We're in Ferrara and we're about to be in Urbin, I beg its pardon. But I'm more interested in the prologue, which is a pretty vicious, not vicious, it's a frightening thing about the perils of authorship Others dare the rope, the hurdle and the rack. I mean, this is nasty. And I mean, what he's saying is there is no resemblance to any persons living or dead are intended by the author. And the alternative is he's in trouble. Serious trouble.
Yeah, and there's also that question of, yes, this is definitely not based on anybody living or dead, even though it might look like it is, which it possibly is. Yeah. You know, that sort of game that satirists have as well. How true do we take that statement? The danger's real. I think Helen's absolutely right about that.
Well, I mean, you've only got to look at poor old Kid.
Rachael.
That's what I was gonna ask. Is Kid? Is he being tortured at this time, or was he just what was going on with him taking place around the time this was written?
No, long before.
No, it's a good 10 years earlier.
Oh, okay.
That's a thing. What happened?
But when was the Isle of Dogs kerfuffle?
Again, a few years earlier than this, I think. But off the top of my head.
So it could be in the back of Marston's mind that authors get in trouble for making fun of important people.
Yeah, and these kerfuffles, shall we say, pop up every few years. It's not just the really big ones; littler ones are happening all the time. So it is an ever-present thing of it's not just whether you are insulting someone, it's whether you're perceived as insulting someone. There's plenty of examples of people ending up in all sorts of problems just because of something in the index. That'll get your ear nailed to something. Other thoughts about this play specifically and the action that is going on? So we're introduced to some plot. Elizabeth and Rachael.
I really love the long speeches. I think that the Hercules' speech, where he talks about the secret arts of rule and those manacles of form, I thought it was really engaging and really grabbing for the audience. I love the initial speeches that the play starts with.
Rachael.
No, that it was answered in the chat, but I was just asking what the Isle of Dogs was, that it's a play and that somebody was imprisoned for it.
Yeah, lots of people got into a lot of trouble. In fact, all the theatres got closed briefly because of the Isle. It was a very bad... We have no idea what it is about as a play. It is that total. It was very upsetting to somebody, and it was banned, and we have no idea really what happened in it or what it was about. So yeah, it was a bad time, and I think someone did confirm it was a few years earlier than this, about 1597. And so yeah, I'm fairly certain theatres were all closed for a while. You know, it was proper, punishment for everyone for one company's mistake, as it were. So yeah. Bad things go down. I'll say other lesser examples also happen. So we got Hercules sort of setting up some stuff, and Renaldo as well. And yeah, it's very much setting up. Look at this guy. Look at this this central character. This person is going to be important, I think. Any other thoughts? Okay, let's dig a little deeper into what's going on in this play as we go into Act 1, Scene 2. I think the scenes effectively get quite long from now on, and the distinctions as to where they begin and end gets a bit more blurry. But Act 1, Scene 2, enter Nymphadoro, Herod, and Page, as it is currently listed.
How now, my little more than nothing? What news is stirring?
All the city's afire.
On fire?
With joy of the Princess Dulcimel's birthday. There's show upon show, sport upon sport.
What sport? What sport?
Merry sir, to solemnize the princess' birthday. There's first crackers, which run into the air, and when they are at the top, like some ambitious, strange heretic, keep a cracking, and then break, and down they come.
Ah, pretty crab. He would yield tart juice if he was squeezed.
What sport else?
Other fireworks?
Spirit of wine, I cannot tell how these fireworks should be good at the solemnizing of the birth of men or women. I'm sure they're dangerous at their begetting. What more fireworks, sir?
There be squibs, sir, which squibs running upon lines like some of our gaudy gallants, sir, keep a smother, sir, with flishing and flashing, and in the end, sir, they do, sir,
What, sir?
they do, sir, stink, sir.
For heaven, a most sweet youth.
Enter Dondolo or Dolo.
News.
What in the name of prophecy?
Art thou grown wise?
Doth the Duke want no money?
Is there a maid found at 24?
Speak, thou three-legged tripos. Is thy ship of fools afloat yet?
I have many things in my head to tell you.
Aye, thy head is always working. It rolls, it roils, Dondolo, but it gathers no moss, Dondolo.
Tiberio, the Duke of Ferrara's son, excellently horsed all upon Flanders mares, is arrived at the court this very day, somewhat late in the night time.
An excellent Nuntius.
Why, my gallants, I have a good wit.
Yea, troth, but now 'tis grown like an almanac for the last year. Past date, the mark's out of thy mouth, Dondolo.
And what's the prince's ambassage? Thou art private with the Duke, thou belongest to his close stall.
Why, every fool knows that. I know it myself, man, as well as the best man. He is come to solicit marriage betwixt his father, the Duke of Ferrara, and our Duke of Urbino's daughter, Dulcimel.
Pity of my passions, Nymphadoro shall lose one of his mistresses.
Nay, if thou hast more than one, the loss can ne'er be grievous, since 'tis certain that he that loves many formally never loves any violently.
Most trusted Frappatore, is my hand the weaker because it is divided into many fingers? No, 'tis the more strongly nimble. I do now love 69 ladies, all of them most extremely well, but I do love the princess most extremely best. But in very sighing sadness I have lost all hope, and with that hope a lady that is most rare, most fair, most wise, most sweet,
Anything. True, but remember, still this fair, this wise, this sweet, this all of excellency has in the tail of all a woman.
Peace, the presence fills against the prince approacheth. Mark who enters.
My brother, Sir Amoroso de Bildoso.
Not he.
Not he?
How is he changed?
Why, grown the very dregs of the drab's cup.
Oh, Babylon, thy walls
And
are
yes,
fallen.
I think you're right. That should all be Herod's dialogue there.
Yeah,
there's no logic on that at all. Okay, so can we just go back to Mark who enters my brother, Sir Amoroso, I think?
Do you want to give me Mark who enters?
Yeah.
Mark who enters.
My brother, Sir Amoroso de Bildoso.
Not he.
No, not he.
How is he changed?
Why, grown the very dregs of the drab's cut.
Oh, Babylon, thy walls are fallen. Is he married?
Yes, yet still the lady's common, or the common lady's servant.
How does his own lady bear with him?
Faith, like the Roman Milo, bore with him when he was a calf, now carries him when he's a grown ox.
Peace, the Duke's at hand.
Indeed. cornet's play. Enter Gonzago, Granuffo, Dulcimel, Philocalia, and Zoya.
A daughter, for that our last speech leaves the firmest print, be thus advised. When a young Tiberio negotiates his father's love, hold heedy guard over thy passions, and still keep this full thought firm in thy reason. 'Tis his old father's love the young man moves. It's not well thought, my lord, we must bear brain. And when thou shalt behold Tiberia's lileful eyes and well-filled veins, complexion firm, and hairs that curls with strength of lusty moisture, I think we can yet speak, we have been eloquent, thou must shape thy thoughts to apprehend his father, well in years, a grave wise prince, whose beauty is his honour and well past life, and do not give thy thoughts least liberty to shape a diverse scope. My lord Granufo, pray ye, you note my phrase. So shalt thou not abuse thy younger hope, nor afflict us, whose only joy in life to see thee his.
Gracious my father, fear not. I rest most duteous to your dispose.
And a concert of music plays.
Set on then, for the music gives us notice, the prince is hard at hand.
Tiberio with his train enters with Hercules disguised.
You are most welcome to our long-desiring father. To us you are come.
From our long-desiring father.
Is this your father's true proportion?
Shows a picture.
No, lady, but the perfect counterfeit.
And the best graced.
The painter's art could yield.
I wonder how he would send a counterfeit to move our love.
Here, that's my wit when I was 18 years old. Such a pretty toying wit had I. But age hath made us wise, hast not, my lord?
Why, fairest princess, if your eye dislike that debtor peace, behold me his true form, and livelier image, such my father hath been.
My lord, please you to scent this flower.
'Tis withered, lady, the flower's scent is gone.
This have been such as you are. Has been, sir, they say in England, that a fair, far-famed friar had girt the island round with a brass wall. If they could have catched time is, but time is past, left it still clipped with aged Neptune's arm.
Aurora yet keeps chaste old Tithon's bed.
It blushes at it when she rises.
Oh, pretty, pretty, just like my younger wit. You know it, my lord.
But is your father's age thus fresh? Hath yet his head so many hairs?
More by many a one.
More, say you?
More.
Right, sir, for this have none. Is his eye so quick as this same piece makes him show?
The courtesy of art hath given more life to that part than the sad cares of state would grant my father.
This model speaks about 40.
And doth it somewhat flatter, for our father hath seen more years, and is a little shrunk from the full strength of time.
Somewhat coldly praised.
Your father have a fair solicitor, and being spoke with virgin modesty. I would he were no elder, not that I do fly his side for years, or other hopes of youth, but in regard the malice of lewd tongues, quick to deprave on possibilities, almost impossibilities, or spread rumours to honour dangerous.
And Dulcimel and Tiberio confer privately.
What? Whisper. Ay, my lord Granufo, 'twere fit to part their lips. Men of discerning wit that have read Pliny can discourse or so, but give me practice. Well-experienced age is the true Delphos. I am no oracle, but yet I'll prophesy. Well, my lord Granufo, 'tis fit to interrupt their privacy. Is not, my lord? Now, sure, thou art a man of most learned silence, and one whose words have been most precious to me. Right, I know thy heart. 'Tis true, thy legs discourse with right and grace, and thy tongue is constant. Fair my lord, forbear all private closer conference. What from your father comes openly, and so must speak. For you must know my age hath seen the beings and the quid of things. I know the dimensions and the termini of all existence. Sir, I know what shapes appetite forms, but policy and states have more elected ends. Your father's suit is with all public grace received and private love embraced. As for our daughter's bent of mind, she must seem somewhat nice. 'Tis virgin's kind to hold long out. If yet she chance deny, ascribe it to her decent modesty. We have been a philosopher, and spoke with much applause. But now age makes us wise, and draws our eyes to search the heart of things, and leave vain seemings. Therefore, you must know, I would be loath the gaudy shape of youth should once provoke a not allowed of heat, or hinder, or, for, sir, I know, and so, therefore, before us time and place affords free speech, else not. Wise heads use but few words. In short breath, know the counterverb, and hold your presence and your embassage so dear that we want means once to express our heart, but with our heart. Plain meaning shunneth art. You are most welcome, Lord Granufo. Trick, figure, note. We use no rhetoric.
And exeunt all except those who are going to continue the scene in a moment. I'm in the pre-planning in the stage of this. I put myself down to read Granufo, but that's primarily because Granufo doesn't say anything. And the game here is so nice. So you have this confidence. It's the kind of part I'd love to play, actually. Just you wander around on stage, upstaging people. It's lovely because it's this silent figure who it's a question of, is he constantly going, or is it actually he knows exactly what he's just there as a sounding board for Gonzago to just constantly talk at. I'm really happy with that as a character. There's some lovely lines. There's some lovely stuff going on. He would yield tart juice and he was squeezed. Is one I particularly liked. I also like the idea of, and that's one for the historians, about being private with the Duke. Thou belongst to his close stool. Is a important one.
It means exactly what you think it does.
It does indeed. And official position does exist with that title. We've also got a callback to Friar Bacon and Friar Bungie of the England being girt round with a brass wall, but time is past. So it's the brazen head conversation from Friar Bacon, which is a good 10 plus years old. As it's something that still has some currency, perhaps. I believe the stories have other currency outside of the theatre as well. So it's nice to have that dancing around. Lynn.
Yeah, and Faust was going to erect a brass wall around Germany, wasn't he?
Mm.
Even earlier than that.
I think they're pretty much on top of each other, depending on your point of view. Anyway, Helen.
Yeah, I see the Ferrarese coming in, young Tiberio and co, carrying between them a perfectly enormous portrait of the Duke. As their arrival procession includes this vast portrait, and the urban court sort of stares at it and tries to be polite.
They're not very good at it.
There's some lovely potential business there, as the portrait is lowered so she can count the hairs on his head, and
yeah, Sorry, Helen.
The question that we haven't answered though is, does Tiberio know that his father is lurking in his train?
I'm going to suggest not at this stage.
Then
but I don't know.
We've got quite a funny bit when the portrait is discussed, because if Hercules is on stage in disguise at that point, then his reactions can be quite amusing.
Yes. Agreed. Yes. I like the pace of the opening as well. Just the constant, the news, and that sense of, there's the stand by for a grand entrance and music playing a part in that as well. Other thoughts? Rachael. No, nothing from Rachael. Okay, Aliki.
I really enjoyed the cell phone there from Gonzago, having gone on and on and on and on, and saying that wise heads use but few words.
Yeah, he's it's a good established gag that's always good for trotting that one round the yard. Lots of good setup gags that I like to see. I mean, I don't know when the silent random person who never gets to speak gag first appears in drama, but it's nice to have it definitely situated here. Other thoughts, Eric?
Well, this is very different to like the previous Marston that we've done. He takes like several acts to set up the gags and then like sort of knock them down quite well. Whereas here he's actually just like sort of, gag and then, or like sort of setting it up and then a few lines later delivery.
Other thoughts? Where do we think it's going? Any thoughts on that, or other thoughts? Elizabeth?
I thought there was a nice contrast between Gonzago and Hercules. And I think it was just very interesting that Aliki is reading both characters. I thought that Gonzago, I just thought there was a nice parallel between the two.
Yeah, Aliki was the prologue. It wasn't Hercules.
Sorry.
That was me.
That was.
But you're right. There is a weight to Hercules which is absent from Gonzago.
Yes.
Well, it's holding up the world. All these labours.
Lynn, then Eric.
Yeah, in terms of where this is going, I really don't know, because Hercules' little monologue at the end of scene 1 led me to believe that he's genuinely interested in Dulcimel. Marston's language can sometimes be really difficult, but that was my impression, that he really had this desire for her. And Dulcimel looks at the picture and is like, yeah, maybe not so much. Just like this flower doesn't have its scent anymore. That old guy doesn't have any juice anymore. So I wonder what's going to happen with that. I mean, the sort of classic comedy thing would be like she falls in love with Tiberio, but that's more problematic if Hercules is genuinely interested in her.
Eric?
I was going to say that I think maybe the sort of Herod sort of, it might be an abbreviation, because we've seen that before where we've had like sort of, well, I mean, there are other plays that do this where they kind of like name the character in the sort of dramatis persona and then they sort of abbreviate it for the rest of the play, and you're sitting there going, I don't know if this is the same character or if they're just like, yeah.
Okay, we need to move on. So we will see where we're going. Everybody has exited, except for Hercules in disguise, Nymphadoro, and Herod.
Did not Tiberio call his father a fool?
No, he said years had weakened his youthful quickness.
He swore he was bald.
No, but not thick-haired.
By this light, I'll swear he said his father had the hip gout, the strangury, the fistula in ano, and a most unbidable breath. No teeth, less eyes, great fingers, little legs, an eternal flux, and an everlasting cough of the lungs.
Fie, fie, by this light he did not.
By this light he should have done then. Horn on him, 65 to have, and to hold a lady of 15. O Mezentius, a tyranny equal, if not above thy torturing. Thou didst bind the living and the dead bodies together, and force them so to pine and rot. But this cruelty binds breast to breast, not only different bodies, but, if 'twere possible, most unequal minds together, with an enforcement even scandalous to nature. Now the jail deliver me an intelligencer. Be good to me, ye cloisters of bondage. Of whence art thou?
Of Ferrara.
A Ferrarese, what to me? Camest thou in with the Prince Tiberio?
With the Prince Tiberio? What of that? You will not rail at me, will you?
Who, I? I rail at one of Ferrara, a Ferrarese? No. Didst thou ride?
No.
Hast thou worn socks?
No.
Then blessed be the most happy gravel betwixt thy toes. I do prophesy thy tyrannizing itch shall be honourable, and thy right worshipful louse shall appear in full presence. Art thou an officer to the prince?
I am. What of that?
My cap, what officer?
Yeoman of his bottles. What's of that?
Thy lip, thy name, good yeoman of the bottles?
Faunus.
Faunus, an old courtier. I wonder thou art no better clothes than place, Faunus.
I may be in better place, sir, and with them of more regard, if this match of our Duke's intermarriage with the heir of Urban proceed, the Duke of Urban dying, and our Lord coming in his lady's right of title to your dukedom.
Why, then thou shalt, O yeoman of the bottles, become a maker of magnificos. Thou shalt beg some odd suit and change thy old shirt, pare thy beard, cleanse thy teeth, and eat apricots. Marry a rich widow or a cracked lady whose case thou shalt make good. Then, my Pythagoras, shalt thou and I make a transmigration of souls. Thou shalt marry my daughter, or my wife shall be thy gracious mistress. 17 punks shall be thy proportion. Thou shalt beg to thy comfort of clean linen, and eat no more fresh beef at supper, or save the broth for next day's porridge. But the flesh pots of Egypt shall fatten thee, and the grasshopper shall flourish in thy summer.
And what dost thou think of the Duke's overture of marriage?
What do you think?
May I speak boldly as Aleppo?
Speak till thy lungs ache, talk out thy teeth. Here are none of those cankers, these mischiefs of society, intelligencers or informers, that will cast rumour into the teeth of some Laius Balbus, a man cruelly eloquent and bloodily learned. No. What sayest thou, Faunus?
With an undoubted breast thus. May I speak boldly?
By this light, I'll speak broadly first, and thou wilt, man. Our Duke of Urban is a man very happily mad, for he thinks himself right, perfectly wise, and most demonstrably learned. Nay, more.
No, no more. On. Methinks our young lord, our Prince of Ferrara, so bounteously adorned with all of grace, feature, and best shape proportion, fair use of speech, full opportunity, and that which makes the sympathy of all, equality of heat, of years, of blood, methinks these lodestones should attract the mettle of the young princess, rather to the son than to the noisome, cold, and most weak side of his half-rotten father.
Thou'rt ours, thou'rt ours. Now dare we speak as boldly as if Adam had not fallen and made us all slaves. Harkee, the Duke is an arrant, doting ass, an ass, and in the knowledge of my very sense will turn a foolish animal. For his son will prove like one of Baal's priests, have all the flesh presented to the idol his father. But he in the night will feed on't, will devour it. He will, yeoman of the bottles, he will.
Now, gentlemen, I'm sure the lust of speech has equally drenched us all. No, I am no servant to this Prince Tiberio.
Not?
Not. But one to him out of some private urging most vowed, one that pursues him but for the opportunity of safe satisfaction. Now, if you can prefer my service to him, I shall rest yours wholly.
Just in the devil's mouth thou shalt have a place. Fawn, thou shalt. Behold this generous Nymphadoro, a gallant of clean boots, straight back, and beard of a most hopeful expectation. He is a servant of fair Dulcimer's, her very creature, born to the princess' sole adoration, a man so spent in time of her that pity, if no more of grace, must follow him where we have gained the room. Second his suit, Faunus. I'll be your intelligencer.
Our very heart, and if need be, work to most desperate ends.
Well urged.
Words fit acquaintance, but full actions friends.
Thou shalt not want, Faunus.
You promise well.
Be thou but firm, that doting iniquity of age, that horny-eyed lecherous duke thy lord, shall be baffled to extremest derision. His son prove his fool father's own issue.
And we, and thou with us, blessed and enriched past all misery of possible contempt, and above the hopes of greatest conjectures.
Nay, as for wealth, Vilia Mirete vulgus. I know by his physiognomy, for wealth is of my addiction, and bids a fico for it.
Why, thou art but a younger brother, but poor Baldazozo.
Faith, to speak truth, my means are written in the book of fate, as yet unknown. And yet I am at my fool and my hunting gelding. Come, via to this feastful entertainment.
And exeunt, remaining Hercules to talk to the audience.
Never knew till now how old I was. By him whom we are, I think, a prince, whose tender sufferance never felt a gust of bolder breathings, but lives gently fanned with the soft gales of his own flatterer's lips, shall never know his own complexion. Dear sleep and lust, I thank you, but for you, mortal till now, I scarce had known myself. Thou grateful poison, sleek mischief, flattery, thou dreadful slumber that doth fall on kings as soft and soon as their first holy oil. Be thou forever damned, I now repent, severe indications to some styles. Freeness, so it grow not to licentiousness, is grateful to just states. Most spotless kingdom and men, O happy born under good stars, where what is honest you may freely think. Speak what you think, and write what you do speak, not bound to serve our soothings. But since our rank hath ever been afflicted with these flies that blow corruption on the sweetest virtues, I will revenge us all upon you all, with the same stratagem as we are still are caught. Flattery itself, and sure all know the sharpness of reprehensive language, is even blunted to full contempt. Since vice is now termed fashion, and most are grown to ill, even with defence, I vow to waste this most prodigious heat, that falls into my age like scorching flames in depth of numbed December, and flattering all in all of their extremest viciousness, till in their own loved race they fall most lame, and meet full but the close of vice's shame.
And exit the Fawn. As we close the act, vice is now termed fashion, and a scene full of ironies there, of course, as the person in the room gets them to describe him. I always like the question that one should always ask someone when you find out, where you're from. Have you ever worn socks? Very important question. Of which I've written in the margin, what? Is it a beach thing? Are they talking about socks and sandals? I don't know what's going on there. Thoughts from the room about this or the other ironies piled high here? Alan.
Despite having read chunks of this, I still got no damned idea at all where the heck we are, what's going on, or what the relationships are between many of the characters. And the dramatic personae at the top is not helpful in terms of trying to define who Herod is. All he's described as the brother of a sickly knight.
Yeah, he's just some courtier.
He's just some random dude almost.
Yeah. So Hercules is there in disguise. There's a whole wooing thing going on here about who he wants to woo, but also his son who he wants to woo, but that's a bit confused. And there's just an awful lot of people being a bit servile, really. Flattering. It's a flattering court. That's what it is. Anyone else want to give a slightly more detailed summary as to what's going on? Helen.
If you go in disguise and then ask people what they think about your undisguised self, you had better be prepared to hear the truth. He seems to have got a nasty shock. But he's coping with it in a remarkably sensible way, I think. Yeah, he's managed to take it on board that perhaps, I never knew till now how old I was.
What a great line, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely spot on. He's always, as I do, I think of myself, I reckon I'm sort of 29-ish. This has not been true for this many decades. But it is, he's had a shock, but I think he's taking it very well. And I have not the slightest idea what the sock thing was.
No, I'm very confused about that. I mean, in a sense, it's very simple. He wants to, Hercules wants to marry the young princess, and he sent his son to arrange it, and he's turned up alongside in disguise. To a degree, that's it. There is no complication on top of that yet. It's actually a relatively straightforward plot. She's not impressed so far.
Well, she's 15 and he's 65.
Yeah.
So, you can see her point.
Yeah.
Except, of course, she could become a rather rich widow. But the Hercules point is rather that the Duke of Urbin is going to die and he's going to take over both countries.
Alan, then Aliki.
I think the sock gag may actually be if he's disguised as Faunus. If they're sticking with the mythology, Faunus would be barefoot with hairy feet.
Yeah, but I don't think he's told anyone his name yet. They're talking about Ferrara, and I'm wondering if where he came from. He says of Ferrara, and I'm thinking, is there some sort of thing to do with that makes sense? I don't know yet. It's very confusing. I'm sure if we had footnotes, we'd know instantly. Aliki.
I'm interested in the way that that last speech of Hercules sits against the prologue. His warning against flattery and defense of free speech. Given the, I might get in trouble for saying these things, so I'm not saying them, all right, from the beginning.
Well, especially when you've got this scene with Herod, who's going to, there's no intelligences here. You can speak your mind, and then it's like everybody says something indiscreet. So it's okay. We're all in it together now. And there's an interesting thing of going, maybe. Lynn.
Oh, I was just going to say, I'm not even sure sock meant the kind of footwear that stocking is. I mean, stocks and stockings were the normal words for that. So I don't know if sock actually meant something slightly different.
It's just that they go straight onto gravel betwixt thy toes, so it seems foot orientated. It's really weird. I say that's one for the experts out there. I feel someone will be able to tell us. Put it in the comments. We don't know. We'll need to move on in a moment. Rachael.
I don't know if I've been here for a play reading where we have Dulcimel's reaction to like Hercules, and I think it's kind of like I know they're just using the mythological name of Hercules, but the idea that it's kind of like Summer's last will and testament, where Summer's not like a youthful person but being portrayed as an older man, that this is like what do you call it, that one like story about Superman and all the superheroes where it's supposed to be like in the future or something, and they're all like retired and Superman works on a farm.
Yeah, it's because we got a name like Herod, but for someone who's actually quite inconsequential, you've got to sort of throw out of your mind that it's not a king. Herod is not important. He's just some dude. Anyway, we need to move on. Fly into Act 2. We can assume, as this is a boys' company show, Children of the Queen's Revels at the Blackfriars. I have a note here. So, Act 2, Scene 1, after a musical interlude, Herod and Nymphadoro, with napkins in their hands, enter, followed by pages with stools and meat.
Come, sir, a stool, boy. These court feasts are to us servitors court fasts. Such scambling, such shift for to eat and where to eat. Here a squire of low degree hath got the carcass of a plover. There pages of the chamber divide the spoils of a tattered pheasant. Here the sewer has befriended a country gentleman with a sweet green goose. And there a young fellow that late bought his office has caught a woodcock by the nose, with cups full ever flowing.
But is not Fawnus preferred with a right hand?
Did you ever see a fellow so spurted up in a moment? He has got the right ear of the Duke, the Prince, Princess, most of the lords, but all of the ladies. Why, he has become their only minion, usher and supporter.
He hath got a more loved reputation of virtue, of learning, of all graces in 1 hour than all your snarling reformers have in...
Nay, that's unquestionable. And indeed, what a fruitless labour, what a filling of Danae's tub it is to inveigh against folly. Community takes away the sense and example of the shame. No. Praise me, these fellows hang upon their chariot wheel, and mount with them whom fortune heaves, nay drives. A so stoical sour virtue seldom thrives. Oppose such fortune, and then burst with those are pitied. The hill of chance is paved with poor men's bones, and bulks of luckless souls over whose eyes their chariot wheels must ruthless grate that rise.
Enter Hercules, freshly suited. And booted, I presume.
Behold, that thing of most fortunate, most prosperous impudence, Don Faunus himself.
Blessed and long-lasting be thy carnation ribbon. O man of more than wit, much more than virtue, of fortune! Faunus, wilt eat any of a young spring salad?
Where did the herbs grow, my gallant? Where did they grow?
Hard by, in the city here.
No, I'll none. I'll eat no city herbs, no city roots. For here in the city, a man shall have his excrements in his teeth again within 24 hours. I love no city salads. Hast any canary?
How the poor snake wriggles with his sudden warmth.
Here, Faunus, a health, as deep as a female.
And Herod drinks.
Poor Jove, we must be more endeared.
How dost thou feel thyself now, Fawn?
Very womanly with my fingers. I protest, I think I shall love you. Are you married? I'm truly taken with your virtues. Are you married?
Yes.
Why, I like you well for it.
No, truth fain, Fawn, I am not married.
Why, I like you better for it. For heaven, I must love you.
Why, Fawn, why?
For heaven, you are blessed with 3 rare graces. Fine linen, clean linings, sanguine complexion, and I'm sure an excellent wit. For you are a gentleman born.
Well, thank thee, sweet Fawn, but why is clean linen such a grace, I prithee?
Oh, my excellent and inward dearly approved friend. What's your name, sir? Clean linen is the first our life craves, and the last our death enjoys.
Ah, but what hope rests for Nymphadoro? Thou art now within the buttons of the prince. Shall the duke, his father, marry the lady?
'Tis to be hoped not.
That's some relief, as long as there's hope.
But sure, sir, 'tis almost undoubted the lady will carry him.
Oh, pestilent air! Is there no plot so cunning, no surmise so false, no way of avoidance?
Hast thou any pity either of his passion or the lady's years? A gentleman in the summer and hunting season of his youth, the lady met in the same warmth. Were it not to be wept that such a sapless chafing dish using old dotard as the Duke of Ferrara with his withered hand should pluck such a bud, oh, the life of sense!
Thou art now a perfect courtier of just fashion. Good grace, canst not relieve us?
Hey, any money?
Pish, Fawn, we are young gallants.
The like to have no money. But, my young gallants, to speak like myself, I must hug your humour. Why, look you, there is fate, destiny, constellations and planets, which though they are under nature, yet they are above women. Who hath read the book of chance? No, cherish your hope, sweeten your imagination with thoughts of, women are the most giddy, uncertain motions under heaven. 'Tis neither proportion of body, virtue of mind, amplitude of fortune, greatness of blood, but only mere chanceful appetite sways them, which makes someone like a man, be it but for the paring of his nails. As for inequality, art not a gentleman?
That I am, and my beneficence shall show it.
I know you are, by that only word beneficence, which only speaks of the future tense, shall I know it. But may I breathe in your bosoms? I only fear Tiberio will abuse his father's trust, and so make your hopes desperate.
How? The prince? Would he only stood cross to my wishes, he should find me an Italian.
How an Italian?
By thy aid, an Italian, dear Faunus, now thou art wriggled into the prince's bosom, and thy sweet hand should minister that nectar to him as should make him immortal. Nymphadoro, in direct phrase, thou shouldst murder the prince, so revenge thine own wrongs, and be rewarded for that revenge.
For the light of my eyes, I think she'll admire, wonder at you. What? Are ye plots, projects, correspondence, and stratagems? Why are you not in a better place?
And enter Sir Amoroso.
Who's this?
My eldest brother, Sir Amoroso de Ledosso.
Oh, I know him. God bless thine eyes, sweet Sir Amoroso. A rouse, a vin de monte, to the health of thy chine, my dear sweet signor.
Pardon me, sir. I drink no wine this spring.
Oh, no, sir. He takes the diet this spring always. Boy, my brother's bottle.
Faith, Fawn, an old unwholesome cold makes me still hoarse and rheumatic.
Yes, in truth, a paltry myrrh. Last morning he blew 9 bones out of his nose with an odd, unwholesome myrrh. How does my sister, your lady? What? Does she breed?
I perceive, knight, you have children. Oh, 'tis a blessed assurance of heaven's favour, a long-lasting name to have many children.
But I have none for now.
Oh, that's most excellent. A right special happiness. He shall not be a drudge to his cradle, a slave to his child. He shall be sure not to cherish another's blood, nor toil to advance, peradventure, some rascal's lust. Without children, a man is unclogged, his wife almost a maid. Messalina, thou criest out, O blessed barrenness! Why, once with child, the very Venus of a lady's entertainment hath lost all pleasure.
By this ring, Faunus, I do hug thee with most passionate affection, and shall my wife take thee.
Nay, my brother grudgeth not at my probable inheritance. He means once to give a younger brother hope to see the fortune.
And yet I hear, Sir Amoroso, you cherish your loins with high art, the only engrosser of eringos, prepared cantharides, culasses made of dissolved pearl and bruised amber, the pink of parquets, and candied lambstones are his perpetual meats, beds made of the down under pigeons' wings and goosenecks, fomentations, baths, electuaries, frictions, and all the nurses of most forcible excited concupiscence he useth with most nice and tender industry.
Bish, Zuccone! No, Nymphadora. If Sir Amoroso would have children, let him lie on a mattress, plough or thresh, eat onions, garlic, and leek porridge. Pharaoh and his council were mistaken, and their device to hinder the increase of procreation in the Israelites, with enforcing them to much labour body and to feed hard with beets, garlic and onions, meat that made the original of man most sharp and taking, was absurd. No, he should have given barley bread, lettuce, melons, cucumbers, huge store of veal and fresh beef, blown up their flesh, held them from exercise, rolled them in feathers, and most surely seen them drunk once a day. Then would they at their best have begotten but wenches, and in short, their generation enfeebled to nothing.
O divine Faunus, where might a man take up 40 pound in a commodity of garlic and onions? Nymphadoro, thine ear.
Come, what are you fleering at? There's some weakness in your brother, you wrinkle us. Come, prithee, impart. What? We are mutually incorporated, turned it one into another, brewed together. Come, I believe you are familiar with your sister, and 'twere known.
Which, Faunus, which? Why, how dost dream I live? Is it 80 a year, think'st thou, maintains my geldings, my pages, footcloths, my best feeding, high play, and excellent company? No, 'tis from hence I mint some 400 pound a year.
Dost thou live like a porter by the back, boy?
As for my weak-reined brother, hang him. He has sore shins. Damn him, Heteroclite. His brains perished. His youth spent his fodder so fast on others' cattle that he now wants his own winter. I am fain to supply, Fawn, for the which I am supplied.
Dost thou branch him, boy?
What else, Fawn?
What else? Nay, 'tis enough. Why, many men corrupt other men's wives, some their maids, others their neighbours' daughters. But to lie with one's brother's wedlock? Oh, my dear Herod, 'tis vile and uncommon lust.
For heaven, I love thee to thy heart. Well, I may praise God for my brother's weakness. For I assure thee, the land shall descend to me, my little Fawn.
To thee, my little Herod? Oh, my rare rascal, I do find more and more in thee to wonder at, for thou art indeed. If I prosper, thou shalt know what. Who's this?
And before we find out who this is, I think we should unpack some of the things going on here. There's a lot. There's some great stuff. There's some quite dodgy stuff. There's the kind of stuff I don't quite know where to start. I'll let somebody else. Thoughts from the room about some of the stuff that's in play here. Who wants to go first? Rachael, I saw a hand, but others may want to.
A lot of word games here. A lot of innuendo.
In what way? They all just went over my head. So I don't know. What innuendos did you spot?
I think the lambstones, the candied lambstones. I mean, all these. I thought that was interesting. That one section by Nymphadoro, because I wonder if these really were like antique sort of cures for erectile dysfunction, perhaps.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Anyone spot any other innuendos out there? I don't know if I think you all just have.
Well, where do we start? Every other word is an innuendo.
Is it? In what way? Aliki, I feel like you have something to say.
Well, yeah, I'll start at the end, just because that's the part of the script I've scrolled to. So the suggestion seems to be that Herod is sleeping with his sister, or possibly his sister-in-law. I'm not clear what's going on there. And also it has been suggested that he lives by the back door, which suggests to me not a porter, but sodomy. There, I found a polite word for it.
I think you'll find the correct terms are appropriate are sodometry and or buggerage, as John Bale has hinted at in the past. Any other double entendres anyone wants to throw in, Lynn?
Well, yeah, that interpretation would make sense, because if he is having an affair with his sister-in-law, he doesn't want to get her pregnant, because then that son, if it's a son, would inherit the property, and he's kind of counting on the estate to devolve on him, because he's counting on his brother dying childless. So, yeah, this is kind of taking a dark and nasty turn. I mean, like, if you want to go back a little bit, I'll prove an Italian. What do you mean by that? I'll have him assassinated. Like, yikes!
There was some. Yeah, I'll go to Briony.
I have a question. What was all that Italian bit about? Was that a bit of casual racism, or something that just went completely over my head? Where Nymphadoro said, if he stood only to cross my wishes, he should find me an Italian.
Yeah.
Eating pizza.
Yeah, Italians are notorious poisoners. I mean, there's not really any actual, I think, historical evidence to back that up. But that's the stereotype, is that they want you out of the way, they poison you. So that's what that means there. Yeah.
Eric.
No, I was just going to point out, I think it's slightly before, it's when Fawn is, also, my question is, what exactly is Fawn wearing? Because, there's probably going, sort of, okay, he's kind of freshly suited, but does he also have horns? Is that part of the joke? Is that true? Because, obviously Fawns don't traditionally, but, I mean, as a male sort of deer, he would. So... Yeah,
I think he's just looking fabulous. He's getting into the court of vice and flattering, and so he will probably be outdoing Nymphadoro and Herod in their level of excesses. I particularly like Hercules' line, "Have you any money?" And he says, "Pish, we're young gallants. Of course we don't have any money. That's not what gallants do." It's the nature of the beast. Rachael, then Helen.
I forget what my question was.
Okay, I'll go to Helen.
I was quite interested in the description of the chaos on the fringes of the court, because this was always a problem. The servants of courtiers who were entitled to eat at court, they had what was called the bouge of the court. Their servants would always try and get the food. And there were, in an ill-regulated court, at the fringes, there would be these battles that you see almost described here right at the beginning of the scene, where he's describing how people who have no rights to food, a squire of low degree has got a plover, and a sewer that's a server. So there's a waiter. He's sitting down with a country gentleman over a goose, and this is a sign of a badly regulated court.
There's some really nice lines in there. The hill of chance is paved with poor men's bones and bulks of luckless souls whose eyes their chariot wheels must ruthless grate that rise. I mean, there's something particularly nasty about that image. There's a nastiness under all of this. I don't think there's at any point Marston is saying these are nice people, or that this court is anything other than deeply troubled. Briony, then Eric, then we will move on.
I just really like the bit where Hercules is talking to Amoroso, and he starts off by saying, like, "Oh, I presume you've got children. That's a sign that you're blessed by heaven to have many children." And then he's like, "No, I haven't got any." He's like, "Oh, that's excellent. That means you're not wasting your time running after babies. Who wants babies anyway?" I just love how it's so duplicitous and false.
But haven't we all done that in a party where we say one thing and then realise we've deeply offended somebody else and then immediately do a volte-face? Eric.
No, I was going to reference the line before that where Herod goes, "Oh yeah, last morning he blew 9 bones out of his nose." It's just it's such a good description of illness as well.
The excess of someone sneezing. I really liked Hercules' reason not to have local greenery.
Someone shit on it.
A man shall have his excrements in his teeth again within 4 and 20 hours. I mean, it's Marston has some real bodily issues from this, and we haven't even got to the stuff that's possibly involving other fluids. Anyway, we will move on. So we're still midway through a scene. We're going to see how far we get, actually. This scene just sort of is never ending. There are some sort of exit and entrance points where the things flow in and out a bit, but we'll see how it goes. So Hercules has just asked, "Who is this?" And it is enter Don Zuccone.
What? No, you're not Don Zuccone. the only desperately railing lord at a lady's that ever was confidently melancholy. That egregious idiot, that husband of the most witty, fair, be it spoken with many men's true grief, most chaste Lady Zoya. But we have entered into a confederacy of afflicting him.
Plots? Are your laid inductions dangerous?
A quiet bosom to my sweet Dondolo. Are you going to visit your lady?
What o'clock is it? Is it past 3?
Past 4, I assure you, sweet Don.
Oh, then, I may be admitted. Her afternoon's private nap is taken. I shall take her napping. I hear there's one jealous that I lie with my own wife, and begins to withdraw his hand. I protest, I vow, and you will, on my knees, I'll take my sacrament on it. I lay not with her for this 4 years. This 4 years, let her not be turned upon me, I beseech you.
My dear Don.
Oh, Fawness, dost thou know Our Lady?
Your lady?
No, Our Lady. For the love of charity incorporate with her, I would have all nations and degrees, all ages, know Our Lady, for I covet only to be undoubtedly notorious.
For indeed, sir, a repressed fame mounts like chamomile. The more trod down, the more it grows. Things known, common, and undoubtedly lose rumour.
I hope yet your conjectures may err. Your lady keeps full face, unbaited roundness, cheerful aspect. Were she so infamously prostitute, her cheek would fall, her colour fade, the spirit of her eye would die.
Oh, young man, such women are like Danaus's tub. And, indeed, all women are like Achilles, with whom Hercules wrestling. He was no sooner hurled to the earth, but he rose up with double vigour. There's full strength in them.
Enter Dondolo.
News. Oh, my dear Don, be raised, be jovial, be triumphant. Ah, my dear Don.
To me first, in private thy news, I prithee.
Will you be secret?
On my life.
As you are generous.
As I am generous.
Don Zuccone's lady is with child.
Nymph, what is't? What's the news?
You will be secret?
Silence itself.
Don Zuccone's lady's with child, apparently.
Herod, what's the matter? Prithee, what the news?
You must tell nobody.
As I am generous.
Don Zuccone's lady's with child, apparently.
Fawn, what's the whisper? What's the full secret news?
Truth, my lord, a thing that, well, i' faith, it's not fit you know it now. Now,
Not fit I know it. As thou art baptized, tell me.
Will you plight your patience to it?
Speak. I am a very block. I will not be moved. I am a very block.
But if you should grow disquiet, as I protest, it would make a saint blaspheme, I should be unwilling to procure your impatience.
Yes, do. Burst me with longing.
Nay, faith, 'tis no great matter. Hark ye, you'll tell nobody?
Not,
As you are noble?
as I am honest.
Your lady wife is apparently with child.
With child?
With child,
Fool.
my Don.
With child? By the pleasure of generation, I proclaim I lay not with her this. Give us patience.
Why, my lord, 'tis nothing to wear a forker.
Heaven and earth.
All things under the moon are subject to their mistress grace. Horns! Lend me your ring, my Don. I'll put it on my finger. Now 'tis on yours again. Why is it the gold now ere the worse in lustre or fitness?
Am I used thus?
Ay, my lord, true. they to be, look ye, mark ye, to be used like a dead ox, to have your own hide plucked on, to be drawn on with your own horn, to have the lordship of your father, the honour of your ancestors, morgue your beard, to descend to the base lust of some groom of your stable, or the page of your chamber?
Oh, Phalaris, thy bull!
Don, have patience. You are not the only cuckold. I would now be separated.
Lass, that's but the least drop of the storm of my revenge. I will unlegitimate the issue. What I will do shall be horrible but to think.
But,
sir, I will do what a man of my form may do, and laugh on, do, Sir Amorous. You have a lady too.
But my sweet lord.
Do not anger me, lest I most dreadfully curse thee and wish thee married. O Zuccone, spit white, spit thy gall out. The only boon I crave of heaven is but to have my honours inherited by a bastard. I will be most tyrannous, bloodily tyrannous in my revenge, and most terrible in my curses. Live to grow blind with lust, senseless with use, loathed after, flattered before, hated always, trusted never, abhorred ever. And last, may she live to wear a most foul smock 7 weeks together. Heaven, I beseech thee.
Exit Zuccone. Enter Zoya and Povia.
He blown off? Now, out upon him, insufferably jealous fool.
Lady,
didst thou give him the famed report? Does he believe I am with child? Does he give faith?
In most sincerity, most sincerely.
Nay, 'tis a pure fool. I can tell ye, he was bred up in Germany.
But the laughter rises that he vows he lay not in your bed this 4 year with such exquisite protestations.
That's most full truth. He hath most unjustly severed his sheets ever since the old Duke Pietro, heaven rest his soul.
Fie, you may not pray for the dead. 'Tis indifferent to them what you say.
Well said, fool.
Ever since the old Duke Pietro, the great devil of hell, torture his soul.
Oh, lady, have charity.
Why? 'Tis indifferent to them what you say, fool. But does my lord ravel out? Does he fret? For pity of an afflicted lady, load him soundly. Let him not go clear from vexation. He has the most dishonorably, with the most sinful, most vicious obstinacy, persevered to wrong me, that were I not of a male constitution, 'twere impossible for me to survive it. But in madness' name, let him on. I had not the weak sense of some of your soft-eyed, whimpering ladies, who, if they were used like me, would gall their fingers with wringing their hands, look like bleeding Lucreces, and shed salt water enough to powder all the beef in the Duke's larder. No, I am resolute, Donna Zoya. Ha! That wives were of my mettle. I would make these ridiculously jealous fools howl like a starved dog before he got a bite. I was created to be the affliction of such an unsanctified member, and will boil him in his own syrup.
Enter Zuccone, listening.
Peace! The wolf-seer takes the wind of us.
The enemy is in ambush.
If any man hath a wit, now let him talk wantonly, but not bodily. Come, gallants, who will be my servants? I am now very open-hearted and full of entertainment.
Grace me to call you mistress?
Or me?
Or me?
Or me?
Or all. I am taken with you all, with you all.
As indeed. Why should any woman only love any one man? Since it is reasonable, women should affect all perfection, but all perfection never rests in one man. Many men have many virtues, but ladies should love many virtues. Therefore, ladies should love many men. For as in women, so in men. Some women hath only a good eye. One can discourse beautifully if she do not laugh. One's well favoured to her nose. Another hath only a good brow. t'other a plump lip, a third only holds beauty to the teeth, and there the soil alters. Some, peradventure, hold good to the breast, and then downward turn like the dreamt of image, whose head was gold, breast silver, thighs iron, and all beneath clay and earth. One only winks eloquently, another only kisses well, t'other only talks well, a fourth only lies well. So in men, one gallant has only a good face, another has only a grave methodical beard, and is a notable wise fellow until he speaks. A third only makes water well, and that's a good provoking quality. One only swear well, another only speaks well, a third only does well. All in their kind good. Goodness is to be best affected. Therefore it is a most vile, is a base thing, and indeed impossible for a worthy mind to be counted with the whole world, but most vile and abject to be satisfied with one point or prick of the world.
Excellent, Faunus. I kiss thee for this by this hand.
I thought as well. Kiss me too, dear mistress.
No, good Sir Amorous, your teeth hath taken rust, your breath wants airing, and indeed I love sound kissing. Come, gallants, who'll run a caranto, or leap a levolto?
Take heed, lady, from offending or bruising the hopes of your womb.
No matter. Now I have the sleight, or rather the fashion of it. I fear no barrenness.
Oh, but you know not your husband's aptness.
Husband? Husband? As if women could have no children without husbands.
Aye, but then they will not be so like your husband.
No matter, they'll be like their father. 'Tis honor enough to my husband that they vouchsafe to call him father, and that his land shall descend to them. Does he not gnash his very teeth in anguish? Like our husband. I had rather they were ungrown for. Like our husband. Prove such a melancholy jealous ass as he is. Not stamp.
But troth, your husband has a good face.
Good enough face for a husband. Come, gallants, I'll dance to mine own whistle. I am as light now as...
She sings and dances.
A kiss to you, to my sweet free servants. Dream on me, and adieu.
Exit Zoya. Zuccone discovers himself.
I shall lose my wits.
Be comforted, dear Don. You are none to lease.
My wife is grown like a Dutch cress, always rampant. For I will endure this affliction. I will live by raking cockles out of kennels. Nay, I will run my country, forsake my religion, go weed fustians, or roll the wheelbarrow at Rotterdam.
I would be divorced, despite her friends, or the oath of her chambermaid.
Nay, I will be divorced, in spite of them all. I'll go to law with her.
That's excellent. Nay, I would go to law.
Nay, I will go to law.
Why, that's sport alone. What, though it be most exacting? Wherefore is money?
True. Wherefore is money?
What, though thou shalt pay for every quill, each drop of ink, each minim, letter, tittle, comma, prick, each breath, nay, not only for thine own orator's prating, but for some other orator's silence, though thou must buy silence with a full hand. 'Tis well known Demosthenes took above £2,000 once only to hold his peace. Though thou, a man of noble gentry, yet you must wait and besiege his study door, which will prove more hard to be entered than an old Troy, for that was gotten into by a wooden horse. But the entrance of this may chance cost thee a whole stock of pattle, oves et boyers, etc. per campi, though then thou must sit there, thrust and condemned, bareheaded to a grog-grained scribe, ready to start up at the door creaking, pressed to get in with With your leave, sir, to some surly groom, the third son of a rope maker. What of all this?
To a resolute mind, these torments are not felt.
A very arrant ass, when he is hungry, will feed on, though that he be whipped to the bones, and shall be a very arrant ass. Zuccone, be more virtuously patient than a noble.
No, Fawn, the world shall know I have more virtue than so.
Do so and be wise.
I will, I warrant thee, so I may be revenged. What care I what I do?
Call a dog worshipful?
Nay, I will embrace. Nay, I will embrace a Jake's farmer. After 11 o'clock at night, I will stand bare and give wool to a bellows mender, pawn my lordship, sell my footcloth, but I will be revenged. Does she think she has married an ass?
A fool?
A coxcomb?
A ninny hammer?
A woodcock?
A calf?
No, she shall find that I have eyes.
And brain?
And nose.
And forehead?
She shall in faith. Fawn, she shall. She shall, sweet fawn. She shall in faith. Oh boy, it joys my blood to think on it. She shall in faith. Farewell, loved fawn, sweet fawn. Farewell. She shall in faith, boy.
And exit Zuccone, and there actually we're going to stop this session. There's an interesting scene to unpack. There's full of some fascinating one-liners. There's some really nice sort of setup and release gags. There's just word games going on. A fool, a coxcomb, an innie a brain and nose. I mean, just the way that plays out as a demonstration of someone's but the game that Zoya, this character who we haven't really met before, and what's going on with her husband, which is sort of the opposite of what happened with the other one, with the talk of Herod of having an affair. This is someone who hasn't had an affair but is pretending that she's pregnant with somebody else. And then this strange stuff that's going on there. It's all sorts of interesting things going on. Rachael.
No, this is the thing about Marston is the way he writes seems like it should fit somewhere later, like in history. Like this is something like the Dangerous Liaisons or something, the way that he talks about the upper class. And then also the little bit about Germany and about fawns from there. There was like in the Renaissance, like art movement between the two of them, like between Italy and Germany, they were having like fierce competition with their art scene. The Italians would, Germany wasn't as built up with cities. So they would be called like fawns and uncivilized because they didn't have the same like courtly manners. So that Germany bit is just about, them being fawns because they embraced that imagery eventually and put it in a lot of their artwork.
Other thoughts? Did I see Lynn waving, or was it just a...
Not really, but I'm thinking about what you were saying at the beginning of this comment session about Zoya. Like, how angry do you have to be to basically trash your own reputation by spreading rumors that you're pregnant when you're not, and flirting with everyone that you can get near when you're not really going to follow through with that, just because you're so angry at your husband for holding out on you and being needlessly jealous. She's so mad. I don't blame her, really, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so there's some great speeches and lines, and when she's talking about what she's like as opposed to other people who are less resolute than she is, and then Hercules this long speech about just saying, hey, you should it makes sense to try have lots of men to choose from because you can pick all the best virtues from them. That's a very logical way of thinking. These setups seem to be just really to be playing around with language and games and just sort of throwing ideas up in the air, and there's something very playful about this, even if at times it gets incredibly dark and dangerous at the same time. It's doing lots of things. Eric?
I was just gonna draw attention to this might be the party at the end of the play that we did last week, which was basically what you will, and they were like, oh yeah, switch off the fixing all the lights, also I'm interested that sort of Zuccone calls Hercules boy, as in old boy, and I'm like, is that how old is this guy?
Or how old is he playing? I mean, that's an interesting question in his disguise. How young can he plausibly appear? Because he is a father, so we know that Hercules has to be older, whereas the other two chaps, Herod and Nymphadoro, are younger. I mean, they're all boys. I mean, that's the other thing with that throws into interesting relief. Alan, then Lynn.
Well, we've already had it stated that Hercules is 65. I think the boy description is probably status rather than age. It's the servant addressed as garçon or boy, irrespective of their age. I'm still having great difficulty in working out what is going on. There was a plot somewhere, but I haven't seen any sign of it for ages.
Well, we haven't had any sign of it this act.
No, it's Marston does seem to put these rather filmy plots together as devices to hold together what are very well written and very funny set piece scenes, but which seem to have got all to do with the plot.
I think we've got to be a bit careful about saying Marston does that, like that, saying he always does. We've done at least 3 plays which have incredibly complex and well-structured plots. The Antonio plays and the Malcontent. But yes, he also can do this kind of thing where it seems to be much more about showing different sections of society and people doing different things. It seems, it's more explicit satire, perhaps. That's being played here. I mean, they could, of course, be deliberate pastiches and figures. He states at the beginning that they're not based on any real people. How convinced are we feeling about that?
He doth protest too much.
Yeah, possibly indeed. Lynn.
Hercules, his son. Well, Dulcimel says, "Oh, this portrait makes him look like he's about 40," and his son's like, "He's a little older than that." But the people who are criticizing him and saying he's 65, they could be exaggerating. So somewhere between 40 and 65. He's older than 40, but he might not be. 65 was really getting on in the early modern period. I mean, some people lived into their 80s, but 65 would be pretty old. So if I were doing this, I'd cast him to be about 50.
Helen.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I'm looking at the history in this, and as I understand it, this is about 1604.
Yeah, somewhere in that region. Yeah,
somewhere in that region, which means that it's a good 10 years before the big sexual scandals broke in the Jacobean court. But it does seem to presage them pretty well.
Well, I mean, it doesn't mean to say that somewhere under the surface people are noticing. It's just they're too polite to mention it.
Yeah. But I can see this very much. I can see this very much as a satire of the English court.
Rachael.
What is Marston's background? Like, did he frequent court? Is this why he writes? I mean, I've only been here for 3 of his plays, so I don't know the rest of his stuff, but I feel like he has, him saying that this isn't based on real people, but being so, seeming like it has some sort of insider knowledge. What did he do? Where did he frequent? Where's he from?
Off the top of my head, I don't know that much. I know he got I think he went to Oxford and did some stuff. I know more about what happens later in his life than what happened in the early part of his life. That might be because we don't really know. But off the top of my head, I haven't prepped that because I don't really do that at this stage. I don't believe that he's very court interested in terms of background, but that doesn't mean he doesn't have eyes, and that he's not taking stuff in. We need to go to final thoughts as we're entering extra time. It's doing all sorts of things. It's full of great dialogue. It's full of really interesting ideas. It's full of some problematic ideas, but they're problematic ideas expounded by people who we're not necessarily supposed to like anyway, so it sort of gets away with it, but maybe it doesn't. No idea really where it's going, because it hasn't really taken us very far, apart from to demonstrate that this court is quite venal. We've been here before, or we will have done in the future, because of course we're not really going through Marston in any logical chronological order. We're really dancing back and forth in time a bit, and occasionally the dating is a bit difficult to get at. So, final thoughts. As ever, we're looking at how this might play today, how we're enjoying it, how an audience might enjoy it. I think I'll start with Alan, who's already articulated some issues with explication. Any other final thoughts?
I mean, as ever with the Marstons, I recall best as doing in the afternoons, there are these set-piece comedy scenes with, just enough material to try and link them into some sort of coherent entertainment. But they all seem to be a bag of bits rather than what we would now think of in terms of being a play, I think.
Apart from What You Will, what other one so far has done that? And this one, obviously.
I must admit, we've done so many bits and pieces of not only Marston but other people that my memory is not as good as someone like Eric's, who seems to remember everything we've done.
Well, does a very good impression of it.
Just don't get old, Eric.
Yes, you do that, Eric.
Please get old, Eric.
Yeah.
Yes.
Eric, I'll go to you for final thoughts.
You make up your mind, let me know.
Do so somewhere in between.
Yeah.
For the next few years, if you could aim for somewhere in between.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I don't know. This text is doing some interesting stuff. It's like sort of it feels more like sort of Ben Jonson type satire than Marston type satire that we've seen before. I mean, like, the malcontent and the sort of what's called What You Will and those kind of things are very fast paced, very like sort of it throws you off balance from the beginning. Whereas this one is like sort of, I don't know, very not necessarily situational, but sort of very kind of, this is the court, and now you're following this main character who has decided to disguise himself, which isn't at all familiar to us, of course. And it just feels a bit like sort of a reverse Musidorus kind of thing, but like not ageist.
Elizabeth, any final thoughts?
Yeah, most of the things that I was thinking about the text have been said by you, Rob, Alan, and Eric. I do agree actually with what Alan was saying about the scenes, how there's almost like I interpreted it as like we don't have that flow between the scenes and the acts that we have perhaps in maybe What You Will. I thought that there was a good progression throughout the text in What You Will that we don't necessarily have here yet. And I think the big thing that jumped out at me is that this play is a bit of a slow burn. You have to give it a lot of time to warm up because we're setting the courtly drama environment. We're setting the sort of the intrigue and the characters, the kind of players that we have at court. And I think that maybe this play needs some time, and it's very difficult to judge it too early. I think it could be quite easily judged far too early for what it is. I'm quite excited for tomorrow, and I'm quite excited to see how the play pans out. I actually quite like the piecemeal nature of it, and I really, really like the characters. I loved Hercules. I thought he was fantastic.
Yeah, and the thing is, actually, it's a structural thing is that actually there's not all the action is really centered on a very small palette of people. Actually, there's been it was quite difficult when laying it out to make sure that everyone sort of had parts across the week. Actually, because every so often you'll have lots of people on stage, but most of the time it's actually 3 or 4 people bantsing, and I think that's the appropriate word as well for what the kind of discourse that some of these people are involved in as well. Aliki, any final thoughts?
Well, I'm going to come back to that bantsing because I find it fairly tedious on the whole. I mean, every now and then there's a joke that leaps out at me, but most of them is like, I can tell that this is a dirty joke, but I'm not sure how. And I can't see how that will work for a modern audience.
Lots of physical actions to demonstrate, though people might need additional wrist support. Greg, any final thoughts?
I'm really glad I was able to pop into this one. I agree with. I'm still not sure about the plot, and I'm glad I'm at least in for one more session. I really enjoyed the little bit of Dulcimel I had this afternoon. She could be interesting as time progresses. I think she's very feisty, and I loved her. Yes, but how many hairs has he got?
Could we be precise, please? Yeah, I don't think it has plot. It has a setup. I think that's the difference here. It's not got an engaged plot that is active. It's got a setup that will lead to some other stuff later on, but it's not like there's this happening and then this happening and then this happening. It's we've arrived at court. Here is what happens at court. So far, at least. We still haven't finished this act. We've had to pause at a slightly artificial point just because of the absence of scene breaks. Actually, there aren't that many. The Act 2 is basically one continuous scene. There isn't an empty period. Briony, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I'm enjoying a lot of the language and the innuendos. I love a good innuendo. So there's plenty of that going on, and I think it would be you definitely have to think very much about how to add in enough physicality for a modern audience to get everything, because otherwise there's so much that's just going straight over my head with this. But not the innuendo, so I'm at least feeling more engaged in that respect. But yeah, I have no idea where it's going, and I can't wait to find out.
Helen, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I think that this, if we get to a second look with this, someone is going to really have to go through it line by line, working out some of these speech headings, because I think we flagged 1 or 2, but I think there are quite a few speech heading problems in there. And I think this will be the 19th century editor's problem, I think, rather than rather than ours.
Yeah, I don't think it's an OCRing thing. I think it is straightforwardly that there are errors that I need to. People have flagged up a few ones coming up, so hopefully it will be a little more accurate. But there's only been a few here and there that have gone horribly wrong, as far as we can tell. But there's one is hoping that the new edition coming soon will help us enormously. Because I'm really feeling the lack of an edition for this one. I'm really feeling it.
Yeah, and every now and then one could do with the odd footnote, especially on the subject of socks. I had a little run into the OED, but the entry on socks was far too long for me to read between speeches, so I packed it in. But there was nothing that leapt to mind. There's an amazing amount of meaning for sock. It's one of those
It's
words.
probably someone's life's work as well to get that get all of that in.
Yeah, well. Anyway, but I'm generally I think this is the Marston I've enjoyed the most so far. I'm just hoping it maintains this thing. It's steady pace,
as it were. Rachael, any final thoughts?
Yeah, this one is my favorite so far of his. He does a really good job at writing, just these horrible characters that you wouldn't want to know in real life. And the reason I compared it before to like something like The Dangerous Liaisons is that that came out like towards the end, right before the French Revolution. It was kind of like this thing that, tantalized the public and also like scandalized them, all the stuff that would go on in court. And I wonder if this is kind of like for the period, not that I think I wonder if this is kind of like a 50 Shades of Grey a little bit for people, that they go to see it because it's salacious, not to compare the quality of writing or structure to that, but just the content and how audiences might have approached it.
And Lynn, I think your last final thoughts.
So I've been thinking about the character of Hercules and how interesting he is. Another bravura Duke in disguise part, which we've seen before, because he has this sort of moment of self-knowledge early in the play where he says, well, my son just doesn't seem to be interested in getting married, so I guess I'll get married again, but I'm going to send my son as my proxy to the court of Urbino. And then when he hears himself talked about, he's like, yeah, I guess that wasn't really such a great plan. Turns out I'm old. But I've changed my mind. I'm going to keep this disguise, and then I'm going to basically I'm going to prank this whole court on a grand scale. But that change of heart is not really necessary. He could have started out saying, my son doesn't want to get married, so I'm going to pretend that I want to get married and then send him to woo my girl for me. And that whole, you always want what you can't have will kick in. And my son will fall in love with my fiance. I will pretend to relent and let them get married. And it will work brilliantly. But that's not what the author chose to do. He chose to make him like a sincere wooer and then mature and then change. It's a really interesting choice.
Aliki, were you waving earlier? Oh, no, you weren't. Just checking. So yeah, Eric.
I was just gonna add that, like, it's interesting how you've got like these sort of emerging character types. Like Dondolo is always the one saying news, like sort of. Whereas I don't know, Hercules is the one sort of playing to the room. I don't know. It's just interesting, sort of these very. I don't know. It's interesting to. It's not character comedy exactly, but sort of, yeah.
Well, yeah. The player has given for all of the parts, actually, no matter how small, is giving the actor plenty to dig into. I mean, there's a huge amount of questions and decisions that have to be made for each of these characters about where they go, and that's going to have a huge impact on how it plays. I mean, we've been skirting a little around some of the themes that are more awkward than others. I mean, there are moments when these men are being quite misogynistic and quite a lot. And the way that lands and plays is a really interesting question. I mean, they're all the same, not supposed to be nice people, but there is this interesting question about where is Marston in this, in terms of his opinions and what the play is saying, as opposed to what the characters are saying, and where the balance between them all lies. And I think that's something that a production today has to have some stand on in terms of how that works and what happens with that, because it is fun to watch people being awful. I think that was Rachael's point. I think that there is a lot of enjoyment to be had out of it, but is there a point when that becomes deleterious and more of a problem in its own right? Any other final thoughts in the room before I close the session? No? Well, all that remains is to thank all these wonderful people for their wonderful reading. Thank you very much. We will return to the Fawn next time. Ta-ta, everyone. Goodbye. Shed salt water enough to powder all the beef in the Duke's larder.